Looking for advice on rookies post-combine? We've got you with a 4-round mock draft right now. Sleeper has come out with rookie rankings, so we're able to do it a little bit more efficiently than we have in the past. This is going to be our 4th video doing mock drafts for the rookies, so we're going to try and get a little bit deeper into the player pool. And we're also going to have coupled this with the startup draft that we just did on Friday. So we did a full Dynasty startup, 5 bench. Didn't go super deep into all the players quite yet, but we will get there as we roll on a little bit further in the offseason. Now we're going to turn our attention to the rookies. We also have rookie rankings as well as 2025 player rankings. So make sure to check out the description for that link if you want to see how we are ranking these players. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new here. And we are going to jump straight into 101. So Matt is going to be taking the 5th pick, and I'm going to be taking the 10th pick. We're going to be doing a 12-team rookie draft here. That's a little different because we did do a 10-team startup mock, but it is better to talk about a few more players and kind of push out how many players we talk about here. So that's the intent there. Jeanty, McMillan, Ward, and Hampton. That's a pretty standard start. McMillan, he's been falling, I feel like maybe a little bit, but he's still top end prospect, still could pull a top 10 draft capital.
Yeah, and this is the reason I wanted to take the 5th pick, because I had a feeling these were the first 4 that were going to go, even though it is the computer, which kind of puts me in an interesting and a little bit difficult position. So looking at the board, obviously I really like Henderson. Warren, I think, is going to be a stud. Burden, I still really like. I'm not sure why it's kind of been hate on Burden season the last couple months. I kind of want to take Quinshon Judkins just because I think he has a higher chance of being a workhorse over Henderson, and I think there's a good chance he is selected as the 3rd running back off the board. But piggybacking off what we did in the startup draft where I took George Kittle, and I talked about when I'm taking Kittle, I know he's going to be great this year, but still wanting to build for the future. I'm going to build this draft around Tyler Warren, who, I think there's still a chance that he goes to the Chargers. Broncos, maybe not so much anymore with them signing Evan Ingram, but I think if he does, I think he has a chance to be a top 3 option.
Yeah, and with Warren, he's going to be interesting to see where he falls, because there could be a tight end needy team in your league that's picking in the top 2 or 3, right? That might push Warren up that high because he truly is one of these elite prospects. If he ends up in the top 12 to 14 in the overall draft, I could really see him get pushed up even higher in these ranks. So between your pick of Warren and my pick here at 10, Henderson, Burden, Ibuka, and Judkins go. Not all that surprising. I was kind of hoping Judkins would fall to me, but I also expect Caleb Johnson to go. So I expect him to be a workhorse and a volume play wherever he goes. He was very, very productive in his time in college. So I really think that I am getting a deal there. I mean, I have him ranked as my 3rd running back in the class, getting him as 5th in rookie rankings, which seems to be more of where the consensus is going. I think is a good value there. I couldn't pass it up. Also, if you go and watch the startup draft, I talked about the importance of getting a running back in this class because of how good the running backs are. And so I didn't pick hardly any running backs. That's a position of need on top of it being my favorite player at that spot. So I think that's a good time to get him.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. And then following that, we see Shedeur go. Milroe, still way too high. Sleeper, what are you doing there? Turning back around, Travis Hunter, he's obviously the big enigma. Loveland, really like that pick in the 2nd round. Trey Harris, for whatever reason, I'm just not super into him. I know I've talked about him a lot. Maybe I'm just completely missing something, but I see him as kind of like a George Pickens light, where he does have some talent, but he's not as explosive, and he still has kind of those same boneheaded plays. Jaxson Dart, I'm a big fan of Jaxson Dart. As you know, I don't think I would take him this early unless, he goes to Pittsburgh, for example, in the 1st round and, is going to be the starter. But someone who fell to me who I don't think is going to be here is Matthew Golden. Obviously, He had that great 40 time. Obviously, he came on hot, for Texas this at the end of the season and through the playoffs. So I think there's a chance that I think there's actually a really good chance he goes in the 1st round. We've seen some where he's like the 1st wide receiver off the board, which I'm not on board with. I don't think that's going to happen, but it very well could. So I'm going to go with him here. As much as I did want to take a running back, I think the value with Golden is too good.
Yeah, and the golden pick was interesting to me because I expect as we get closer to actual draft season, he's going to be flying up rookie boards. Like these
Yeah.
rankings are going to get updated, and he's going to be in the top 10. It was between him and Caleb Johnson for me at that 10 slot. So to see him fall to 2.5 is just, like you said, not something I anticipate lasting very much longer. So if you are doing rookie drafts or you are doing your startup that includes rookies soon, make sure you highlight and star and get Matthew Golden on your team like multiple rounds ahead of where he's going to be drafted. If you're doing a startup that includes rookies, I do think he's going to be a very, very highly sought after wide receiver in the draft, and it's going to be, reflected after the draft in these rankings, I think. So looking down the board here now at the rest of these running backs, there's Dillon Sampson, there's Cam Skattebo. So those are kind of the two running backs right there that I'm looking at. And again, I would like to get a receiver, but I don't know that I think that Ao Manor or Restrepo are better than either of them for my team. So I'm going to pick Dillon Sampson, somebody who I don't expect is going to get like a big time featured role or workhorse role anywhere, but he could be, in that 8 to 10 range with targets, and he could be the complementary running back and play quite a bit even as a rookie. So I'm going to go ahead and take him there and just pray he lands with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs, I think we might have talked about that before with Sampson, but I really like Sampson. At one point I actually had him a spot higher than Judkins. So I'm definitely very high on him. I know the Tennessee guys as a whole kind of get a bad rap just because the system that Josh Heupel runs where they spread guys out all over the field is a little bit different. And, we've seen with someone like Jalen Hyatt, who won the Blitnikoff over there and then hasn't really done much in the league. We saw Jalen Wright come in with these incredible measurables. Obviously, he's playing behind a great back in Devin Achane, but probably didn't get as much runway as maybe we had hoped for. But I am high on Sampson. I really like that pick. And then, like you mentioned, in the startup draft that we did in hammering wide receiver, you definitely needed the help if we're kind of going off that. But looking at my board, we've got RJ Harvey, Harold Fannin, who is one of your favorite players, Gunnar Helm, Damien Martinez, bunch of tight ends here, Jalen Royals. I'm going to go with someone who, like you mentioned with Matthew Golden, is kind of suppressed in the rankings on Sleeper, and that's Jaden Higgins. We're big Jaden Higgins fans. He's kind of a prototypical X receiver, kind of worked his way up through college, wasn't a big time recruit or anything like that, but just great measurables, was a lot faster than I think people thought he was going to be. Those Iowa State guys are pretty good. So I think he has a good chance to play, on a team that has that as a position of need. Now, I've said maybe the Chargers just because, Quinton Johnston hasn't been the best. They can definitely get him in the second, but maybe even the third round, just kind of depending how things fall. So I like his potential upside.
Yeah, and I think Higgins is another one post-draft that's going to be making his way up these boards because I think his draft capital is going to be much greater than some of these guys around him. I could see him going in the second round. I personally want to see him go to Washington. I think that would be a good fit.
Yeah.
So looking at the rest of the board here, this is where it gets really tough, right? I mean, we're talking about these players now that we maybe haven't been picking in the other mocks that we've been doing. And without knowing where they're going to be playing, it's kind of tough to know. But just based on projectability or the player themselves, I'm going to go in on somebody that I think is also a very good running back that's not maybe getting the hype of some of these other players. Like seeing Ollie Gordon here, this Damien Martinez is somebody I have ranked ahead of Ollie Gordon. So, I don't know. I just am going to take the guy that I feel the best about. The other guy I could go with Jordan James. He's a little smaller, but he could be a good pass catcher. Jack Besh is somebody that I think is a solid wide receiver too that you could consider in this area. He's my favorite receiver on the board there. Tez Johnson, unfortunately, he ran very slow. So, I might have been able to beat him in the 40s. So no, I'm obviously kidding there, but he showed out on tape a lot faster than he ended up running. But I'm going to go with Damien Martinez here and continue to lean into that running back position. That would have paired well with my startup team.
Yeah, I like that. And I was hoping that Harvey would fall to me. That's kind of who I had my eye on, but I'm definitely going to take a running back here. Just looking at the board, I do like Bhayshul at the wide receiver position, like you mentioned, as well. I've taken him in a bunch of best ball leagues. Running backs, we've got DJ Giddens, Shard Smith, Woody Marks. I like Marks, but I'm going to go with the speedster here, Bhayshul Tuten. Obviously, he just kind of blazed at the combine. I think he's got a lot of potential in his game. Not to be a workhorse, but change of pace, can hit some home runs. And in the fourth round, I'm just kind of looking for some, guys that can make big plays.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting guy to try and rank, right? Because he obviously showed out with the elite speed. But he's not excellent between the tackles. He doesn't really push the pile very well. So, he could turn into kind of like a scat back or like a backup, basically, right? Like a Kenneth Gainwell type, which doesn't end up translating to fantasy very well. But, if he is used creatively and can kind of be more like Darren Sproles instead of Gainwell, where he gets a lot of pass catching, but not a ton of rushing work, maybe there is something there that can be started in your flex, especially in PPR leagues. And then the last guy here, another player that I like, and I'm just going to lean fully into the running back position here. Again, Jack Bhayshul, the guy I mentioned last time, is still there. If this was a real draft, I'd probably pick him. But I just want to go with DJ Giddens. I do have him ranked a lot higher than this too, so I'm not sure I understand this one either. I expect him to get decent draft capital, possibly day 2, but more likely early day 3. And he's somebody too that I think could end up leading a backfield pretty quickly on a running back needy team. So I'm going to go there, fill out my running back core, right? Pair this with what I did at my running back last, in the startup, because I took like Connor, Trey Benson, and Jalen Warren. Those were the only 3 running backs I took. So now I've got some players to complement those guys at the running back position. Overall, what do you think of your team? How do you think it turned out?
Like I said, I really like the Warren pick for the long term. I think he's going to be a great piece. And, we're operating under the assumption that we're doing this after the actual draft. I would still be hesitant to take him this early before, because if he does end up on, my worst case scenario is Indianapolis, where they've got so many receivers, a quarterback who can't complete short and intermediate passes. So I think he will fall quite a bit if that does happen. Really like the Golden pick. Really like the Higgins pick. Tuten, kind of a flyer. Maybe I would rethink that one.
Yeah, on my end, I actually really like my picks here. I have all 4 of these guys ranked inside my top 12 running backs. So for me, if they do end up getting the capital and they do end up getting decent roles right away as rookies, this could really be a good foundation for my team at the running back position. I did this kind of to make a point. I don't know that I necessarily recommend you go all in on one position, especially one in Dynasty as fickle as running back. Guys change value so fast at that position. But I wanted to make a point. I wanted to have guys to talk about, and I really like all 4 of these players. So if you can get any one of them during your drafts, I definitely recommend it. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. A little bit of a shorter one today, but the rookie mocks, hopefully, is something we can continue to churn out to you guys. Very much looking forward to the draft, and we look forward to talking to you guys in the next one.